I want to just, on the first slide here, we're going to be talking about a project in Tennessee, and that'll be the focus. But I've got a visual shout out. You might notice the middle photo is not Tennessee. Some may recognize it as Boulder, Colorado. So just a visual shout out to my school and a longtime home in Boulder at the University of Colorado, especially since I'm sitting between presenters close to the University of Tennessee and then you guys in Texas. So we've got a lot of background there. And we'll focus on the Tennessee project. But again, in terms of background, and I think foundational for this deal, the fact is Vis Solis is a small company, but we have our roots in Europe. Lots of work now in North America, and actually specific projects in Asia that we're doing. But so world-class PV power plants, easy to say that. But this is a picture real quick of in the former East Germany, a former Soviet military base actually that came into public use after the Berlin Wall came down. So that's about a 3 megawatt project, very similar in size to the project in Tennessee. But we know the design and procurement construction process, but more importantly for today, the financing, the owner, and operating is important from our perspective. I think key to being able to work with principal and provide them the asset that works for them, because we know what it's like to be an owner and operator in the end. So we're not just designing these things, getting them commissioned and handing them off to somebody. These things have to be assets that perform. So we'll go into that more. And of course, from our perspective, I think it also really helps to bring to the table a global network, but a real local focus. So personally, I've been very hands-on from the beginning, and meeting Barry Brown, and he'll talk about how he got these the deals with Tennessee Valley Authority and the local distributor. But we bring a global expertise focused on local sites, global resources, but it's really key that there's local partners, global procurement, but it's always local energy. So you guys in solar know this, but you can never, I don't think, underestimate the importance of the global and the local. So here we go. Powerhouse One, this is the first in the line of our Vis Solis Powerhouse line, but this is a 3 megawatt project. It's actually four 750 kW contracts and projects that were built close together geographically, but also built at the same time to form 3 megawatts. And Barry Brown will go more into that process later on. It's also important to note in terms of Tennessee Valley Authority, this was one of the, or 4 of the last contracts, one of the last projects and the largest private project of what they call Generation Partners. That program no longer exists with TVA, but we have this ongoing contract for the life of these projects. So the off-taker is Tennessee Valley Authority. Again, 4 systems at 750 kW for the whole 3 megawatts. Lincoln Farms 1, 2, 3, and 4. So going through the site design and development, Barry could talk more about it. It's very marginal land. I guess there may be some pasture, some grazing. I don't know if there was ever cropland per se on there that was very productive, but a nice site close to the grid in Lincoln County, Tennessee, owned by Barry or his family members and friends. So Lincoln Farm 1, this is actually commissioning day. We'll take a closer look at Lincoln Farm 4 and how this site, which is kind of a borrow pit, and how this was transformed into a real nice solar project. This is how the site looked just about 4 weeks from this view here to the array being in place, and then it was another 2 or 3 weeks until it got commissioned online. But you all know the process, but we'll just run down through it quickly in terms of surveying and laying this out, driving posts. This is, again, a good view of Barry Brown's good work and our contractors. But Barry had 3 roles that, again, that Vis Solis structured in this. Barry's the landowner receiving rent. Barry had the contracts from TVA that we were acquired and consolidated in Powerhouse One. And Barry is our subcontractor in constructing a great solar project. Some of the soils weren't so good, so we had our actually brought our testing people from Germany. So this again to be a real solid asset, documented for acquisition by a great company like Principal. The documentation was important, not just the technical viability of the project. So where we needed to, the soils were weak, we added some ballasting in some of those. The racking installation, this is actually one of our supervisors, again, that we brought from Germany to train and make sure in terms of quality control that, our local guys were up to speed. We were able to use local forces as well as proven personnel from our company to make sure that, again, we had a real good project in the end. Module planning, again, guys, Jürgen from Switzerland, and that's Danny from Germany with the local guys there planning for a real good module layout. Top quality product involved here. We can go into that later. Mounting, this is actually a young man in college, an MBA student that wanted to be involved hands-on as part of his college. So he interned with us and was involved in some of the installation work as a trainee. Of course, then the wire management, getting that all just right. Barry can talk about this. He brought some guys in from NASA. We're very close to the site in Huntsville, Alabama. So we had some real top-notch electricians that came in off hours and did some of the work. It was interesting. He had a look at spaghetti here on the ground, but I came back 1 hour later. He had a nice, neat combiner box tested out, ready to go. Working at night on the schedule to get the inverter pads and transformers in place. Fayetteville Public Utilities, in terms of their grid upgrades, we had to do about 2.5 miles of upgrades in terms of their line for Lincoln Farm 4. So they did a great job as well. It was a great partnership with the local utility as well as Tennessee Valley Authority, the regional transmission operator. Inspector Day, it's interesting working in small communities, as many of you all know, during the projects. In this case, we had to avail ourselves of the Tennessee State Inspector, as the local Lincoln County actually didn't even have a permit requirement, but we had to get that for our documentation to make sure everything was good. So this is inspection day, the meter installation to measure, again, the generation meter, especially, I guess, designed and built for Tennessee Valley Authority that they provide. Projected intergeneration, coming down to the heart of it here. Ken will go into it, and Barry, as well as Michael, but this is our projection early on. You'll see from them that we've exceeded this in a pretty good clip. Now, the project construction was started September 16th in 2011. And the project went on grid November 2nd, 2011, so about 6 weeks of installation time. You'll also remember that 2011 was the end in terms of the 1603 cash grant. Some of the projects happened beyond that, but you had to be safe harbored. So this was actually constructed, in time, and the 1603 grants were monetized as part of the project and part of the deal. For Principal, that was one of the things that I think was, something valuable that the Solis was able to bring to the table in the financing here, to take on the pre-financing and actually completely financing this project, but monetizing things like the 1603 cash grants, which is an interesting process in itself. But the Solis taking on that risk, being able to hand over a completed project with those funds, those treasury funds in the bank, was, again, I think, a very valuable thing to the project. So some keys to success, again, the global team, local focus. You can see the flags there, Tennessee flag, German flag, interesting, a Chinese flag. Astronergy was one of the investors with us early on. We were able to take them out of the project, but it was very important to us to have a high-quality product and work with real top-notch organizations all the way through. Fayetteville Public Utility, I can't say enough about them. It's amazing to find such a technically strong and competent partner in rural Tennessee, second to none that we've worked with anywhere in the U.S. or really in the world as far as that matter. And the distribution system, it's important. This Park City substation on a bright day like today, every bit of, every kilowatt hour that's going through the system, through the substation's circuit is going to be from solar from Powerhouse One. And some of that's going to be, beyond that, some of it's being uploaded into the TVA grid, which works fine because TVA is paying for the energy. So this is about a mile from the power plant, from Powerhouse One. But again, the FPU distribution system was great and really a key to the success of the Tennessee Valley Authority and their program. Kind of tough to work with in terms of a huge organization, and they've changed the program so many times. But we were able to work through the process. And again, making sure everything worked with TVA and everything was right in advance of Principal acquiring the project was something I think that was very valuable in terms of mitigating their risk, something that Vis Solis was able to bring. This is Jürgen. He came in, he spent 2 or 3 weeks on the site from Germany, again, to bring the best of what we had in America with the best of what we have in Europe to really get a project that we know is technically sound, but also legally and compliance-wise with all the government involvement, TVA, 1603 Treasury, et cetera. These 2 guys, again, from Germany to train our guys locally. We had the best of all worlds, again, in terms of local jobs, local installers. Some came with NABCEP entry-level certifications. Barry was able to pre-screen everyone, but we were able to on the site have Stefan and Rico here, really lead the training, give a lot of confidence to the guys that were less experienced on the job. Perseverance through was important. And then just to sum up here as I hand it off to Michael and Ken, again, a proven PV project for Principal portfolio. That's I think was a key, and Michael can talk about it more, but our job was to have a project that really was documented well, built well, that we could stand behind and know every detail about the project. It's interesting, the analogy that Rick used in terms of, I guess, handing off your daughter or something. I don't know. I've done that. My son's getting married the day after tomorrow. But again, a proven PV project for Principal's portfolio was I think, important to them. For us, it freed up cash for more Vis Solis development, so we can pre-finance, we can get other projects built, but hopefully we can do more deals as we hand off a project and asset to Principal. At the time, this was the largest, and I think it may be actually, it's still the largest private commercial PV plant in Tennessee, in the TVA area, not just Tennessee, but the 7-state Tennessee Valley Authority service area. Interesting, cost-wise, one of the things TVA made us downplay our marketing, our promotion, or our announcement, which at the time, because they were about to open up the West Tennessee solar farm, but looking at the cost, and that was completely publicly funded, but we came in at half their cost. FPU, Fayetteville Public Utilities, actually became the #2 in the U.S. for installed photovoltaic per customer. So in terms of solar watt per customer in 2012, FPU was number 2. Again, Vis Solis was able to finance the project at the beginning, engineer, procure, construct it, and then monetize the 1603 grants. And then, again, up until a year ago, if you take from November 2nd of 2011 till June 17th or so of 2013, that's about a year and a half of track record that Powerhouse One had, again, giving out confidence to a buyer. Okay, and so we hope this is just the first of many deals in an ongoing Principal Vis Solis relationship. So that's about it. I thank you for your time and attention, and we'll hand off back to Rick and to Michael, Ken, and Barry.
All right, Tim, thank you for that overview. If there are any questions from the audience, please chat those. You can chat to all participants or all panelists. I will hold most of the questions for the end. But Tim, I had one question. Do you happen to know who was #1 utility as far as solar watt versus per customer?
Yeah, that's interesting. I couldn't tell you for sure, but it was either, because 2 years in a row, it was either a utility in California, and there was actually a Hawaiian, Hawaii had quite a bit of development between them as well. So I can't tell you specifically, but we could find that out. But it was far from Tennessee, I can tell you that.
Okay.
And a much bigger market.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Okay. So next up, we're going to have Michael Martin. So as you heard, the Powerhouse One project was completed, constructed, online before the end of 2011. And then around the end of 2012, a year later, Principal Solar began speaking with Vis Solis, and a sale was completed around June of 2013. And so I'll hand things over to Michael, and he can talk about that process, about how Principal Solar found Vis Solis and elected to acquire the Powerhouse One project. Michael, go ahead.
All right. Thanks a bunch, Rick and Tim, and to everyone that's with us today. Thanks for making the time. So, and I'm not going to talk about daughters getting married and all that because I've got 4 of them, 2 in college, and we're not ready to go there yet. So what I will talk about, though, is I'd like to, one, introduce Principal Solar to everybody and why we're doing deals, transactions, such as this one we're studying today on Powerhouse One, and then summarize the business aspects of the Powerhouse One acquisition that we did with Vis Solis. So the Principal Solar's mission is to build the most valuable company in the solar business, and our business model supports that through acquisition, owning, operating solar power plants, large-scale solar power plants. And so that's what we're busy with on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And currently we are really active with project evaluations with a wide range of and diverse range of partners in the United States, throughout North America actually, and starting to look at some sites and partners and projects beyond that, rest of world, as part of our game plan. And the idea again here is, as a public company, which Principal Solar is, that increasing the value of our solar portfolio and our solar assets, like to which Tim referred, is the game plan in order to have a positive impact then on the valuation of the business through our publicly traded stock. And so let me talk here about one just generic example to give you a sense of this. And if we use this simple numbers of $100 million, because that's easy math on $100 million. And these days, for those of you in the business, you're going to be familiar with this, that to build new solar projects today, the key capital that you must bring to bear is tax equity. And in the example here, in a typical model, if you will, 55% of that would be brought by a tax equity investor whose motivations are to have a really strong low-risk return over a 6-year period that's generally provided through some really low-risk sources, meaning ITC, the investment tax credit, and the accelerated depreciation capability. So those are all federal government, treasury backed returns to their investment, and then the cash flow of the project. And as you've heard Tim talk about, in the case of the Powerhouse One project, when you've got the Tennessee Valley Authority agreeing to buy your power for a long time, 20 years, then there's virtually no risk in terms of will this thing produce the revenue it's supposed to. So for the tax equity investor, that's their position in a project, relatively speaking, about 55%, and 10% return, and it's really low risk. Principal Solar will come in with a small equity share of its own at about 5% as defined there, and then the balance we will go also outside to external lenders to provide leverage and greater returns throughout the project. So the bottom line of this is that for Principal Solar, what it does is that with a pretty small investment that does come directly from our shareholder base and from the working capital of the business, but what it yields is, in this case, a very significant $60 million net asset valuation on our books. And that's the kind of the financial engineering of our business, and that's driving what we're busy with today. Now, the exciting thing about this is that the tax equity investors, with their desire to get a low-risk, high-return, in this case 10%, it's very complementary to what Principal Solar is after. They're looking for the low risk, high return for a short period, 6 years or so. And then for Principal, we're looking for the long-term owner-operator and all the care and feeding of the system, if you will. So very complementary. That's not what they want to do, and it is what we want to do in terms of taking care of the project over time. Now, also, just to generically mention, the kinds of entities we work with, kinds of projects that we're looking for. You can see some of the key components here amongst the partners that we're engaged with now, and Vis Solis is a great example of this. They hit on all these and more very effectively in terms of their story. And then the project, again, you heard Tim give a great description of Powerhouse One, and I simply highlight a few key things that, per the earlier point about the role of the outside investors into these projects to fund them, that the track record of the developer is really key. The PPA, the offtake of the power, hence the firm driving the whole top-line revenue of the project, in this case, Tennessee Valley Authority and Fayetteville Power. You've got to have those. And then also, it needs to be enough scale for investors to attract a much more interesting set of investors if you can be, at least as we're defining here, $15 million of total capital and up. So now specifically, as it relates to Powerhouse One, the way we got connected with Tim and his colleagues at Vis Solis is just through the fact that they and we are pretty well networked in this business, and the right folks often find each other, and that's what happened here. So once we got acquainted with one another, the process we ran through was really first getting a sense, of course, of our company, our cultures, a commitment to quality, and certainly we've had a really, really positive experience and continued with Tim and company. And then once you get past the first phase of this, then it's just diving into all the usual stuff of really looking carefully at the project, in this case, on operating projects. We also and predominantly work on to-be-built projects that are well-developed. But in this case, and the good news is, you look at one that's already built, and you can look at its performance and how it's doing against its original design, et cetera. You can obviously get a very good sense of the kind of people you're dealing with and the kind of product they deliver. So we went through all that. Of course, site visits, poring over all kinds of data ranging from technical and legal and financial documents, et cetera. Not too far into that, we committed to each other to work exclusively on the project. And for those of y'all in this business, that typically involves putting together a letter of intent or a term sheet where there's some consideration for that exclusive discussion, and that's what we did. And then all throughout this, once we got into the due diligence, in parallel, it's the track of looking for the outside capital, if you will, to fund the project, as I described earlier. And so we completed that, and as that's going along, we're, of course, working, again, simultaneously on the details of the purchase agreement that will ultimately govern the way we work together and this transaction over to Principal Solar from Vis Solis. And also, very importantly, because of their role not just to develop, but then to take care of the system, putting the operations and maintenance agreement in place. And Kim's going to talk about some of the things going on now, such that you can hear about that aspect of the project now that we've acquired it, but certainly have Vis Solis still involved in a very key way with us to keep it optimally performing. So, and that whole process was, 6 to 9 months. In terms of when we first met and really dove into things. And the capital raising in this business, like a lot of other businesses where you need outside capital, is very rigorous. And so you've got to get your ducks in a row. It's going to run in parallel with other activities you're finishing in due diligence. And so there's a lot of orchestration there that has to go on. But with a good partner like Vis Solis, then you're all looking for the same goal and objective. And we got there, and we're very delighted with the results, again, a year later. And now, as you're going to hear more about, the project's running great. It's doing good things for our business financially as well. So we're very very pleased so far with the relationship with this project that's in our portfolio, growing the business as I described right up front. And so I'm going to turn it over now to Ken to dive into more aspects of how we're taking care of the system now and improvements, et cetera, that we're making to make it the most valuable asset it can be for Principal Solar. So thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Michael. This is Ken Allen. I'm the COO of Principal Solar. First thing you want to do as an operator, of course, is get your hands on the stuff you're going to be working with. And so made a trip to Fayetteville, Tennessee, and through Nashville, of course, and spent some time there, probably, I would say 8 to 10 hours just looking things over. And I got a chance to meet Tim Hayes and Barry Brown for the first time. And right off, you could tell by the way that they were interacting with each other and they were talking to myself that they were a good bunch of folks to work with. They really knew their business. They had done this before. And the project was located in a great part of the country, just beautiful country out there. And so spent a little time there talking to them about what we were going to do together. Came away feeling very good about what this project was going to do for us. So what my primary interest was, besides meeting the folks on the ground in Fayetteville, was to look at the equipment condition, looking at things like air filters, what's the road access to the projects, security fencing, lighting, all these very practical things that make a project firm so that you don't have to worry or be concerned about it as it goes along. So one of the things I noticed right away when I entered the site was I got a chance to open up cabinets and look at things that were already operating. Barry had been doing a good job taking care of the air filters. The roads all looked good. The fence was in good shape. Everything was working when I walked in, and that's a big deal. That shows me that they were truly interested in taking care of the project. And so I didn't see anything that concerned me at all when I entered the project. Of course, you want to look at modules and inverters and monitoring systems that are connected to it. The PV modules, we have a rating system that we have developed at Principal Solar. And, of course, we ran it through our rating system. The PV modules come out in a favorable way, so we felt good about that. The inverter is advanced energy product, when advanced energy is one of the better producers of inverters in the world. So I felt very good about the inverter. The monitoring system was Medio Control, which has significant capability. And so it turned out that the equipment looked like it was really doing well. Each site had a reference cell for looking at the irradiation coming into the project. So after a quick look at that and looking at the foundations, you know, you're always concerned about the soil conditions and the wind and all those sort of things. And as turned out, we had a tornado come in close proximity to the project just a month or two ago. And it just passed over the project, just barely missed one of the projects and landed east of and hit the ground and caused quite a bit of damage. But the winds associated with it were pretty high. And what I noticed when I was in the project looking was the foundations were done well, where they needed to change design to take care of soil conditions. They did it. The racking was in good shape. And, of course, you're always interested in drainage when you go in these projects. You sure don't want conditions such that you can have flooding and those sort of things take place. And this site was drained well. It is in a lower area where it's going to stay a little damp, but the water does get through it and get off the site. So it looked like it was a pretty good location. And then, of course, there was another location at Site 4. So we got 3 projects on one site, and we got a 4th one at another. Got to visit both of them, and they both look like they're in great condition to handle the weather. The site's laid out like this, and you're always interested in the layout of the site and what's around it. That's what's good about a visit. And I noticed trees on the southeast side and southwest side of the project, and you could tell when the project was designed, those trees were viewed as a potential shade, and so these projects were laid out to accommodate those shading events that were going to occur at different times of year. Now, it turns out they weren't exactly immune to the shading, but And when you get there, you can see how big some of these trees are. When you visit these sites and you look at them on Google Earth, you think, oh, wow, that doesn't look bad at all. But when you get on the site and start looking up these massive trees that grow in Tennessee, some of these things are really tall. I mean, well over 80 foot tall in some cases. So you soon realize that at different times of the year, these trees, as beautiful as they are, can be a little bit of a problem for a solar project. And on top of that, of course, you want to look at the generation and how the project's running. I got a chance to do that and look at some of the irradiation from the sun and what the project was putting out as a result. And I spent a little time on that, making sure. Now they don't all look this pretty. When clouds pass over, it kind of changes these views. But we got a chance to see how well the projects were running. They were doing pretty good. We didn't want to log on to the systems until we had a good relationship working with the owners. And so we spent time, got permission, and logged on and began to look at how the system was running, looking at operational statistics, and who was responsible for what, how the alarms were being managed, were we managing energy losses, were we looking and measuring these things to see if we can make improvement. And some of those things were being done, not all of them, but this project was just coming out of construction, and so when it comes time to operate, the focus changes a little bit. So I knew the guys that were involved in this were going to be very supportive. So I came back with a very favorable view of what I had seen. And then when I come back home, I began to look at all these different things I could see on the monitoring system, and it really added a lot to what the project was doing. And now once you purchase the project, you know you want it, and you get involved with folks and you have a team, communications turns out to be a big deal because we're hundreds of miles from the site. And we have folks on site that we're going to rely on. And so Barry was engaged and very supportive. We set up weekly O&M meetings. We set up alarm response that we wanted to manage. We started measuring lost energy. We wanted to track that. We wanted to, of course, look at maintenance documentation. So we set up an agenda. So every week we have an agenda and we have items we talk about. We get on the phone and we spend somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour talking about the project and how it's been running. We look at the causes for lost generation, what causes inverters to shut down, grid instability, and inverter grid ride-through capability. In other words, the local utility, it has power quality that sometimes ain't the best, but it's not always something they can control. A lot of times weather, and sometimes people and vehicles hit utility poles, cause disturbances on the grid. And so we looked at those things that were occurring, and we realized some of the things we're going to have to do is harden the ride-through capability of our inverters. And so we spent quite a bit of time working with AE to do that. They'd already done some of that research on the West Coast, so we was able to take advantage of that, and they built that into their inverters so we could adjust the frequency range, voltage range that these guys work in. So we was able to work with them and make some changes on it. We also learned how to remotely restart our inverters should they have problems. And one of the things we found when we took over the project were the breakers that were feeding the power out on the grid were a little, they were sized just for 1,000 watts per square meter. And lo and behold, there in Tennessee, the radiation goes a little above that sometimes. And when it does, we were having outages on occasion. And so we had to, one of the first things we did was raise the breaker size to accommodate those, because that's some of your better days when that occurs. We had some inverters doing some rather strange things, power output dipping at the same time every day on the monitoring system, and you go, nothing is that consistent. That has to be a timing issue or a clock. So we found the clock was 12 hours off. We realized that some of the shading occurring on the southeast and southwest corners of the project were costing us a little money, and we've been talking with the neighbors and working with Barry on preparing to remove some of those trees, which we've already done at Site 4. He's quite versatile, Barry is, and he can do almost any kind of thing you put in front of him. So we've talked to him about removing some of those trees, and we're planning to do that fairly soon. And we had an inverter array fault that was causing startup failures a little while after we bought the project. And of course, we found we had a home run cable go bad on it. Those things in the first few years of operating a project, you usually find those things when they begin to fail, and we fixed that. Barry got a hold of that and fixed it in a very short time. But you got very practical things to deal with when you own one of these projects. You got bills to pay, you got relationships with local banks, you got O&M logs, you got to monitor your alarms, you got to train folks to do things, understand the alarm system. I have to admit, when we first took it over, we didn't have complete understanding of how the alarms, all the algorithms were programmed, and so we had to spend a little time getting trained on how all those work and how we could integrate those into our plans and make the best response possible. So we went through that and had some data missing, but we went to work on that and started making corrections on all those things. And it's just things you focus on when you begin to own a project. We had a local utility to deal with, a lot of local resources. We had waste management to think about, fire departments, were they trained? Do we need a water supply? Who's the internet provider? Is there support contractors in the area? Do we have security? Is there engineering contractors, environmental health and safety? All these things come into play when you own a project. And we learned that all that stuff is available in the general area, so it looked like a very favorable project. We set up a preventive maintenance program. There's always documents that tell you what the maintenance is going to look at. But Barry and I spent a lot of time on the phone coming down to here's how we're going to do our maintenance and here's how it's going to work best for us. So we spent a lot of time working that out between us. We documented it, and now it's a working program that Barry handles for us. The performance improvements go like this. The average performance ratio over the first 5 months of 2013 versus 2014, our performance ratio is up 4%. As everybody knows that is aware of that factor, it eliminates weather as the problem or other things. It just basically says that project is running better no matter what the conditions are. Our production this year is up 18% over what it was last year in the same 5-month period. The days we were below 90% of operation have gone down from 7 to 3, and 2 of those days this year were caused by a tornado in the area and recovery from that. So we've only had 1 day. And lost energy has really gone down. We had 40 megawatt hours the first part of the year. Last year we went down to 14 megawatt hours this year, and 10 megawatt hours of that was simply because a tornado went through the area. So we've significantly dropped that almost by down to a tenth of what it was. So those are the favorable things that happen, and much that's happened because Barry is engaged in working on the project for us. So I think that's all I have, Rick. Back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ken. And we're going to move to our last presenter. And in my analogy about the father handing off his daughter in marriage, I think Barry would probably fill the role of the father. And so, Barry, if you could provide some of your unique perspective on the entire history of the project and what you've seen, starting with how you picked this land or acquired it or pulled it together, your initial interactions with TVA and with Vis Solis, and then Principal Solar. And I will turn it over to you, Barry.
Well, I can sure tell you that my daughter's getting married in October, and I really didn't mind handing off my solar applications to Vis Solis at the time as much as I'm not looking forward to my daughter getting married. It's kind of like one of them things that you kind of dread, but you got to let them grow up, and that's kind of what happened with my contracts that I had with TVA. I was a landowner of several different parcels, and having a voice, video, and data telecommunication background, I was definitely doing some studying on solar and looking for something to diversify my company. So through the process, I just went ahead and jumped out on a limb and made application for all of the solar applications that consist as far as Lincoln Farms 1, 2, 3, and 4. This was in July of 2011. And shortly after getting the applications, I started in a very peculiar way trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to pull all these pieces together. And as time was not in my favor because of these having some expiring dates that they had to be completed by, I kind of let too much time pass and didn't have the wherewithal to pull it together myself, so I reached out and started trying to find someone to partner up with. And as Tim could probably contest in the Tennessee area during those days, that the Green Partners Program applications with TVA were very valuable commodities, but nobody was really wanting to allow you to participate or really gain as much as you could possibly if you were to do the project yourself. So through an interviewing process, I've probably talked to at least 5 or 6 different companies, and when I met Tim and Carlos with Vis Solis, I got just a really good feeling just through our initial meeting. It was very personable, and I'm kind of a person that deals from a gut feeling and off the cuff, and just made a rash decision to go ahead and partner up with Vis Solis, and I have never regretted that. So through the process of the land that I owned and had the contracts in place, me, Tim, and Carlos quickly got together and devised a plan and executed it. And as Tim stated earlier, we started in September and was definitely on the grid, less than 10 weeks. And for me, that was kind of like a tornado itself, not knowing exactly what to expect, because I had enough knowledge to be dangerous at the time, and through expertise from Vis Solis and their engineering folks and their experience, we were able to pull together all the pieces and parts that were viable to get started, and we just jumped into it gung-ho and got the project done in about 10 weeks. And from then, actually, maintaining the system for the first year and a half, I was once again very fortunate that the off-taker of the systems became Principal Solar. For me, it was a very concerning fact of who was going to, acquire the assets and basically take the systems to the next level for the next 20 years. And I couldn't have been more pleased dealing with Ken. I haven't met personally Michael or Matt and Rob and everybody, but Ken did come to Fayetteville, Tennessee, and like I said, as soon as I met Ken, I felt very comfortable that he was a hands-on type guy that pays attention to detail. And after the acquisition was completed, we, as Ken mentioned earlier, we got involved in a weekly conference call that basically allowed us to fine-tune everything that we had been doing well and allowed us to do things even better. And Ken, my hat's off to you. And like I had mentioned on an occasion or two, that you can always make sure that things that meet the model and things, the production is what it was designed to be. But Ken takes it really one step forward, and he wants to catch everything that falls through the cracks. And that has allowed me to become a little better operator myself from a standpoint of O&M, and I just couldn't be more pleased grouped up with Vis Solis and Principal Solar.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much, Barry. I'm going to open the floor to Q&A now. We have about 12 minutes left. And so, again, if you have any questions, send those to chat. I've collected some from the audience, so if you've asked it already, you don't have to send it again. But if you have any questions or think of any now, please send a chat to all participants if you want to share it with the entire audience, or to all panelists if you want to keep your name private. The first question that came in is for Michael from Hunter. How will your business model change when the ITC, the investment tax credit, expires after 2016?
Yeah, great question. First of all, we don't know if it will expire in, 2.5 more years, but and I believe it actually is currently expected to be a reduced rate down to 10%. There's talk of it, production tax credits such as the wind industry has. We'll see. So it'll change things. It'll adjust things in terms of those valuable components in the deal for sure. But the other really critical thing is 2.5 years in the solar business right now is a very long time. And like a lot of other industries, think of telecom and software and information technology, the cost reductions that continue to happen in this industry will absolutely continue to do that, whether it's panels, inverters, the balance of system, the efficiency standards, labor to put it in, permitting, and everything else that makes the industry much more efficient. So all those costs are going to continue to decline, and that means that the pressure, so to speak, or the reliance or the importance of specifically the 30% ITC absolutely will be reduced. So we're thinking about it, and we'll see what happens. A lot of those things are very positive external factors that are directionally going to keep headed that way. And then politically, with an ITC, we want to be as independent of that as we have to be. We're not, our business doesn't really, we don't focus on lobbying and promoting and pushing for political agendas. We're just trying to drive economic aspects of this business at Principal. So it'll be just a changing variable, but the industry should be even stronger and more healthy at that point.
Excellent. Next, there was a series of 3 questions, I think all for Tim. I'm going to kind of combine them, Tim. So the first one was, did you plan to sell Powerhouse One after only 2 years when you built it, or was this Principal Solar opportunity something that changed your schedule?
Yeah, I can tell you, this was perfect timing, exactly. We didn't have a say, ticking clock, but in terms of our investment that we put in to finance this initially, the thinking from the beginning was to get this done, prepared for a long-term operator, investor. So, yeah, it was perfect. I mean, Principal came in at perfect timing, and it was set up to do this right from the beginning.
And Tim, then a follow-up was, did Powerhouse One, did it have a 5-year tax equity flip financing structure like what Michael talked about?
Okay, well, we had the cash grants. Michael would have to, I mean, in terms of the tax equity, we were able to avail of the initial 1603 things in terms of the makers, the double depreciation, all of that, but the main things people were focused on was it was clearly the 30% cash grant, not just the tax credit. So I'll let Michael speak further about that, but the big thing here was the cash grant, and then the advanced depreciation and that came along with that.
Michael, did you have a comment there about the 5-year structure that you had talked about in light of the Powerhouse One project?
Well, just that, of course, since that project was built and brought online, that 30% incentive has just changed to where now that cash grant's off the table and expired, and we're just in this period of, the 5-year, the tax credit that requires investors to stick around and be involved in the project for 6 periods, also to capture all the makers. So it's just, again, it's different timing, that's all. So nothing else to add there, really.
Yeah, we just didn't have that constraint with this being a 2011 completed project.
Okay. Next question was for Ken. How does Principal Solar consider energy storage integration in the near to medium term, and does the Powerhouse One facility have room for storage?
Well, we don't necessarily have room for storage at the sites, but there's plenty of space around the site should we choose to do it. But one thing we're noticing is across the world, I guess, is when you get a pretty high concentration of renewables, the first thing that you do after you get that is start looking for storage. It's such a major part of what you need. So I suspect in the near future, storage is going to be almost as big a deal as renewables is, because it allows you to shift your generation off the peaks of renewable time. So I think it's a big deal in the future. It is for me. I know in Germany it's a big deal right now. In California, it also is. Both these, the state and the country took a big jump into solar. So I see it a big deal for everybody in the renewable industry in the near future.
And Glenn clarified that question. He wasn't referring to space for storage in Powerhouse One, but rather space for storage in our financial model. So I think the second part of your answer qualified that. But if you have any other comments, Ken, about how energy storage would fit into our future Principal Solar business model, you can go ahead and make those.
Well, I think it should be part of it, because it gives you so much more flexibility as a provider. The utilities will love it as well. So I see us in the future being part of our portfolio That's the way I look at it personally.
Okay. Next question was for Tim. Did you have other suitors for Powerhouse One? And if so, why did you pick Principal Solar? That was in reference to Barry's comment that he interviewed 5 to 6 companies as development partners before he picked Vis Solis. So Tim, that was for you.
Yeah, sure. No, I've just actually, there was quite a bit of interest, but it was really about who could, I guess, had their stuff together to begin with, and in terms of, again, all the participants in this project across the board are top notch, from Barry on through the suppliers and equipment, and I mean, it was we're glad to partner with Principal, that's for sure, with their long-term mission and goal, and then the professional and expertise behind everything that they do. So there was other interest, but as soon as we got working with Principal, to be clear, we from our side, we wanted to get it done with them, and we're pleased that we did.
Okay, great. The next question is from Michael. Where do you see the most attractive opportunities for Principal Solar internationally, and what kind of financing models might be possible in those cases where you do not have things like the investment tax credit and the maker's depreciation? Sure.
Well, gosh, the global opportunities in solar, it's a super long list, of course. So because we are where we are here in the United States and in Texas, Latin America, of course, Mexico, and further into South America is obviously going to be, we think, a very exciting market. There's lots of good factors there in terms of growing markets, insulation, issues with current energy, whether it's too expensive or it's not as available or as reliable as it needs to. So those are all the kind of factors that we look for and that are present in a lot of places around the world. So you can obviously extend that into certain regions of Africa for sure, and Asia. So I can't give you a prioritized list right now, but there's, naturally, as we go further afield from North America, I expect South America will be, Central South America will be one of the first places. And as far as financing goes, you're right, there will be potentially in these different markets, certainly these emerging markets will have various incentives, and we'll definitely be teaming and partnering with local investors, other local partners we need to ensure that the deal gets done properly, as well as the power plant is optimized and taken care of once it's in service. So we'll definitely be doing that. And the other thing to keep in mind, in so much of the rest of the world, the benchmark for electricity power pricing is going to be so much higher that incentives are going to become a much, much smaller factor, just because we're going to have a lot of room to operate under PPAs and other arrangements for the offtake of the electricity at a much higher rate, most likely, than we experience in the United States. And when you've got that much revenue to work with, then you can have a very productive and profitable business and still do great things for the local consumers of the electricity in terms of reliability and low cost. And I'm going to try to get through 3 more questions quickly. So, Michael, the next one is again for you. Does Principal Solar monetize the tax equity for the developer? Well, the tax equity is typically an outside, not understanding exactly what the thinking of the questions, but the tax equity investor will come into a special purpose entity that we have in place for each of these projects, and that tax equity investor is the one that takes advantage of and receives those benefits from the tax credits, depreciation, et cetera, and some portion of the project revenue as well. So it's really the tax equity piece is focused on outside investors, and the developers in this business and this kind of model that we're talking about are typically receive direct compensation from us once the project deal is done and or once it's built, if it's a project where we're helping get it across the finish line and get it in service.
Okay, next question is for Tim. Might be a simple yes, no. Can you disclose the PPA pricing for Powerhouse One?
Well, yeah, I think anybody could. This is pretty public. I guess I should ask Michael. I mean, if you mind, you own the project, so I guess I should hand that back to Michael unless you have a problem. TVA was pretty public on their Generation Partners program, but what's your thought, Michael?
Yeah, Rick,
so,
what was the specific question again?
If we could disclose the PPA pricing per kilowatt hour for Powerhouse One with TVA.
Well, it's got a base component, and then it's got a premium associated with it for a decade or so. So I think total top line on it's over 20 cents per kilowatt hour for a number of years. So obviously that's a great local incentive put over by TVA.
Okay, I'll take another question. Was from James. Do you think the new PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing Programs, which will soon be rolled out in Texas, will benefit solar PV in general and utility scale in particular? So I think that's for you again, Michael.
Yes, I mean, PACE has been around the U.S. for a lot of reasons and been used in a lot of different sectors, and of course energy and efficiency and then power generation among them. So I think it'll have most significant benefit to commercial industrial solar, private premises of businesses that have good facilities to improve their property via efficiencies and then through clean energy that's generated on site. So yeah, we're excited about it. It's it was passed a year ago. I don't know if there's been a single jurisdiction in the state yet that has adopted it and implemented it. I think it's coming, and we're excited and supportive of it. And yeah, it definitely will be helpful because it de-risks the investment side of it. It should bring efficiency to the decision making by businesses who choose to adopt solar and improve their buildings, if you will, that way. So yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful. And once it's a vehicle for financing that's really in play in Texas in particular, then we'll probably be involved with it and in deals where we'll use that means to help a customer get the solar power on their site.
And for those in the audience who might not know what PACE is or might be more interested in it, if you go to principalsolarinstitute.org and look at our past webinars, we held 2 webinars with Charlene Heidinger, who is one of the leaders of Keeping PACE in Texas. That was last September 26th. And Jan Brandt, also, who has a Demeter Power company that's focused on PACE and commercial PACE in several states in the country and is looking at the Texas area. So you can find those at principalsolarinstitute.org. That's all the time we have for now. I apologize that there are a few questions that were left over. You can see all of the presenters' information here, and so if your question was not answered, please email any of us. With that, I'll let you guys each have little closing comments. We'll go in the same order as the presenters. So Tim?
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Again, if anyone has follow-up questions, let me know, and yeah, all the best to, we're pleased to work with Principal, and hope we can do a lot more deals in the future as well, while we keep Powerhouse One, continually improving. So thanks, everybody.
And Michael?
No, I'll just add my thanks to everybody that participated today, and Rick for you running the show. Thank you for that. And please go to principalsolar.com for any more information, and it's very easy through that to contact us there, or my information is here directly through the Institute's webinar. So be happy to hear from you and talk with you in some offline way. Thank you very much.
And Ken?
Yeah, thanks everybody for listening today. I just want to say everything we're doing here is a team effort. Without it, it just wouldn't work, and we do appreciate all the relationships we've built while making these projects work together. So we want to thank Vis Solis and especially Barry, who lives with this thing every day, and all the folks who are involved in this financially or however. It's really worked well. Thank you.
And our father figure here, Barry, if you would.
Well, I appreciate everybody taking the time to participate in this, and I'm very proud to be partnered up with both Principal Solar and Vis Solis. And if there's any questions I can answer, feel free to contact me at any time.
Thank you. And I would again thank our two sponsors, Principal Solar and Vis Solis. And you can find more information about them at the links that I chatted out and at principalsolarinstitute.com.